welcome to the Inspire series. I am so beside myself with excitement because I have with me the beautiful, amazing, incredible Rachel Jones. Rachel, good morning.
Good morning, Dale. Thanks for having me.
It is such a pleasure. We've known each other for a long time. Last time we saw each other at the QUT at the Leadership Coaching Conference. You are insanely intelligent. I mean, ridiculously. And it's been proven academically in other ways.
I don't know about that. I don't know where your sources are.
No, I have my sources, don't you worry about that. And, but apart from that, which is clearly impressive in itself, you have this enormous heart that anyone who meets you for a second it's just so obvious that you have this beautiful heart for people, growth in people. Is that what kind of what do you love about your work as far as what you see in people and stuff like that?
It's really interesting that you asked that question, because recently I've been reflecting a lot on what got me started in sports psychology, and it really came down to when I was 16, we were doing a career inventory. There was a question on the career inventory that said, to help athletes to reach their full potential. And I still remember to this day, a long time later, circling that question and going, that is what I want to do with my life. And it was more than helping people to perform on the field. It was actually helping people in all areas of life. And that's just developed over time. And I can think of all of these different moments where it's almost like you walk into an organization or a group of people and go, hang on, I feel like I can see what's possible here. Or with an individual as well. And that's what it really is for me. It's about seeing people thrive, really. Not just survive, not just get out of an issue that they're struggling with, but actually go, no, life can be better for you. And it actually sometimes becomes a point of frustration if I'm seeing things or watching things where it's like, just with a marginal adjustment, that could be so much better. And marginal adjustments aren't easy, but just kind of, I guess, the heartache of people not thriving but being so close to it. That, I guess, that's what drives me and what keeps me going.
It's interesting. I was listening to Jordan Peterson and he was speaking to thousands of people, and he basically broke up in tears, and he said, I just can't believe how little encouragement people need to do so much better. And that just blew him away. And I suppose is that it is sometimes it's quite a small gap, but the gap just means everything. Would you say?
Absolutely. And I think there's a couple of parts to that, because people they just need someone in their corner that goes, what, I believe in you, and I'm not going to put labels on you or expectations on you or go, well, this is how it's going to be forever. But I can instill hope in that moment and go, I can actually see something. You don't have to see it yet, but I can see what's possible for you. Like, if you think about someone who's walking in depression, it's like, let's just look for that speck, the light at the end of the tunnel. It doesn't have to be a big light. And we kind of have this expectation that it has to just, like, I have to wake up tomorrow and be fine. But let's just take a step. Let's take another step. Let's take another step. And when you see that shift and that person kind of start to catch that hope and see what's possible, it's incredible. But I think on the flip side of that as well, I find a lot of power when actually validating people's experience. And so often I'll have people come and see me and they're really upset or really disappointed, but then they're putting pressure on themselves because they're feeling that way, and I shouldn't be feeling this way, and I should be able to fix this. But to be able to sit with those people and go, you're not broken. You're going through a hard time, and it makes a lot of sense that you're feeling what you're feeling. And that's okay. And sometimes even just having that conversation, they just go, oh, it's okay for me to feel like this. And again, it instills hope. And they have that ability to go, well, I can keep moving forward now. I'm not stuck in this feeling and there's nothing wrong with me. So yeah, I find simple is not the same as easy, but sometimes just those conversations, it's like, man, we've just moved from here to here just in one go, just by those realizations, and actually having permission to go, my experience is really valid and really real, and there's no expectations for me to feel anything else in this moment.
Oh my gosh, it made me cry. That's so beautiful. I mean, that's what people need, just someone to be there in the space with them, and that's just so beautiful. So beautiful. Yeah, it's not. I love simple but not easy, because at the end of the day, life isn't rocket science.
Yeah.
But it's so hard to like keep on track and deal with the complexity of it.
Absolutely. Like I know in my own life, just by going to bed half an hour earlier, like marginal adjustment, I can change my whole week, you know, and the whole next day. And it seems almost too simple. And sometimes I think that's the challenge, is the complexity and the simplicity of it. And a lot of the strategies that we use with athletes are almost deceptively simple, because it's like, well, you need to focus on what you've been practicing, when everything in your mind is trying to tell you that, you know, you need to focus on all of these distractions. You need to focus on what people think. You need to focus on what's going to happen and what could go wrong, and be prepared for all of these things. And you need to focus on your nerves. And it's like, no, you need to focus back on doing your job and keep it really simple. But that almost feels painful, because the rest of your body and your brain are going, but freak out. It's like, just commit to the plan under pressure, when you don't feel good, when it doesn't feel comfortable. And that can be a really tricky thing to do.
Yeah, I really find that with my coaching as well, because when I teach people acting techniques, I think, because they understand them in like 2 seconds. Like I say, this is what it is. I mean, I've worked with 13-year-old children, and they get it in 2 seconds. It's definitely not rocket science. But then applying it, is just like, well, it's very easy to understand. Wasn't understanding enough. Well, unfortunately not.
Yeah.
That's not the hard part.
That's exactly right. It's that consistent practice, like anything, you know, we have to do it consistently. And like the bed example is perfect. Just by going, I know that if I go to bed half an hour earlier, that it works really well, and yet I don't always do it. And I know when I get to that time, I'm like, you know, it would have been easier if I went to bed half an hour earlier, but I didn't. So I'm just going to roll with that. But even then, sometimes we've got to make it easier to make those decisions, if that makes sense. So it's about planning your whole day around that. It's about shifting the routines that you do before you go to bed, so they're not taking so long, and things like that. So again, a really simple example, but easy to go, well, actually, I'm really comfortable watching this TV show right now, or reading this book. I might just stay here a little bit longer. You know, really easy to do. Even though the simple choice makes a huge difference.
And do you think with that, I sometimes think with stuff like that, it's almost like you're going, I'm being naughty. Oh, you're being naughty to yourself. Good on you. That's really great. Rebel. You rebel, you. I'm resisting authority. I'm my own authority.
Yeah, exactly. It's so silly, so counterintuitive, but so common.
So Rachel, could you tell us just something beautiful or some silver lining that's happened to you because of the lockdown?
Yeah, well, it came at a really, really interesting time for me. So probably December, January, February was just ridiculously busy, like crazy busy with the business. So I run my own business, and a lot of the teams that I work with are competing over summer, so it's quite busy from that perspective. So things don't really slow down over Christmas. And so all of a sudden everything just kind of stopped. in a big way, and there was a bit of chaos and a bit of scrambling, but it was just really nice to be home and to reset. And even though there was a lot of chaos around that and a lot of fear, once I kind of stepped back from that and went, actually, okay, I'm going to embrace this. I'm going to find ways to make this work, and to enjoy the time I have, because I don't want this to ever happen again, and we're probably never going to experience anything like this again, hopefully, but I'm going to find a way to make the most of it. And for me, that was really about, catching up on sleep. There's a bit of a theme here. Catching up on sleep, but being at home. And I travel a lot. So I work a lot across Southeast Queensland. So I'm often, I live on the Gold Coast, but I'm often in Brisbane. Don't even get to sleep in my own bed half of the time. So just to be home for kind of weeks on end and not have to go anywhere, and kind of set my own schedule and work from home, and I'd go out for walks during the break, and I live beside a lake, so it's just a beautiful place. And like, I had some days where, there was a swan's nest near where I live, and the baby swans coming out on the lake, and seeing things like that, and you just go, wow, I probably wouldn't have had the opportunity to actually sit back and enjoy this if I'd sort of been keeping my normal schedule. But it also gave me some time as a business owner as well to sit back and go, hang on, what am I doing and why am I doing it? Because there was this big scramble all of a sudden. Everybody was going online, and everybody had this new online course that they were doing, or, there was all of this pressure. People were talking about, now's the time to write that book, if all of these things. And I remember, like, I'm a bit of what's the word? I'm quite driven. So if I see something like that, I'm like, right, let's go. I need to write a book. I need to write an online course. I need to, like, whoa, slow down. And because it felt like so much pressure. Like it's a great way of thinking. There's this amazing opportunity to do some incredible things, but it just, that for me turned into pressure. So I had to take a step back and go, hang on a second, what's actually important to me? What's important to the business? How do we want to set it up? What do we want to chase after? And all of these incredible opportunities actually came in. So people came looking for us instead of the other way around, us trying to make things happen. And we're also able to work on a bit of the infrastructure in the business and things like that. So both from a personal and professional point of view, it was just nice to take a bit of time to think about things and reset from that perspective.
That's so interesting. What crossed my mind was that because you are a performance coach, and I expect that a lot of what you are coaching people in is resilience.
Mm-hmm.
And so then when a big thing happens, it's kind of a little bit on you to model resilience.
100%. Absolutely. Got to practice what you preach. Yeah. It's that balance between actually being honest and going, well, hang on a second, I need to take a second here. But so it's not about never feeling those things or never having a tough time, but which resilience isn't that anyway. Resilience is going, okay, this is tough, I'm not comfortable, how do we make this work, how do we move forward from this? And I actually really enjoyed something that was way out of my comfort zone, was going live on Instagram. Initially it was pretty much every day, and then we kind of spread it out a little bit more, and that's just not something that I would normally do. I'm like, you know what, I'm going to find a way to do it, and I'm just going to press that button and go and see what happens. But it was also really nice because I was able to share some of my own experiences on there as well, and just say to people, this is what my experience working from home has been. And, even some of the information that was out there, like giving people permission to go, yes, and so let's, people are talking a lot about routines and things like that, but it's actually okay to change up your routine. And I would give examples. You know, today I wasn't getting anything done. I'm over my old routine, so I had to change it up. I didn't completely depart from what I would normally do, but I changed it up and I feel so much fresher. So being able to share my own experiences, but then coach others through that as well, I found was really powerful, but also really challenging. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think sometimes as a coach, you just go, well, look, I'll just stay the way I am, and let's work on you. It's all about you, which is good. It's good, but it's not the whole picture, really, is it?
No, exactly. And I think you really limit what you can then share with others, because if you're not growing, you start to develop more and more blind spots. And you don't have that openness to hear that from others. And so what you can then pass on to others, I mean, you can still pass things on to others, but it's obviously a lot harder to do that if you're not working on yourself at the same time.
Who is a person who has just been a big inspiration in your life?
I would have to say my parents, and I know that might sound a little bit cliche, but my dad actually retired end of last year, and there was a big dinner. He'd been in a specific role for 21 years, and at this dinner, so he was a community leader. He was a pastor for those 21 years, and had a lot of engagement with the community and a lot of community projects that he was involved in. And of course, Mum was part of that as well. And it was amazing sitting back at that dinner and listening to people making speeches, but it wasn't just people within the church community. It was actually people within the local community as well. So there were members of parliament there from different levels of parliament who clearly had been affected by essentially Mum and Dad's life work, and just looking at the relationships that they've had. And it was a lot of things that, I mean, as a child, you get to see some of those things, but even a lot of that being so close to them that I hadn't seen, and just kind of, they don't have a tendency to talk themselves up very much. They're quite humble, and they just get on and get things done. They see a need and they get it done. And for me, I also got to speak on that night, and it really got me kind of thinking about the legacy that they've left. And I mean, they've got more ahead of them. I'm sure that's going to continue to increase, but just kind of taking that moment to stop and reflect and go, wow, that's amazing, the way that they've not only influenced individuals, but they've influenced whole communities with lasting change. And there were specific areas and things that they'd set up that kind of creates that ability for that legacy to keep growing. And I think that's something that I probably unknowingly have taken on, because I think, you know, I love working with the individual and seeing them shift in different ways and be able to live a really thriving life. But I enjoy just as much, and possibly even more, working with organizations and kind of seeing it from all different angles. So you work with the individuals, you work with the leaders, and with the culture as a whole, and start to see all of those things shift in a way that then, you know, that leader goes and leads in another community or another area or another team or organization, and is able to take those principles into that space. And so you see this flow on effect. So yeah, I would say my parents, and they're also incredibly kind, and just love people. And you know, that's always an inspiring thing, to be able to see that. So yeah, they're definitely that for me.
Oh, that is so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And I think that's what I really like a bit about the millennials and the younger generation, is that they seem to be really interested in purpose and legacy and impact. And even though, no matter how misguided sometimes we can all be, just, once you've got that desire, then the thing is you just... at least you're focused on trying to do good and to put good in the world in an eternal sort of capacity rather than a temporary sort of capacity, which I think is really interesting. And Rachel, could you tell us a time when you've reinvented yourself?
I guess that would probably be when I started my business, um, because I went from working for a company, and I was pretty blessed in that role. I had quite a lot of freedom, for someone working under someone else's company, but um, you don't realize how big of a deal business is. Like, I knew it was a big deal and I knew it was going to be tough, but I think being able to shift into that space and then go, okay, now I'm responsible for everything. What do I actually want this to be about? Because I think I thought I was I had quite a clear purpose and vision, but I had to revisit that and really think about what that actually looks like practically, but also in areas that aren't my strengths. So in terms of running a business, that is not how my brain works. And in terms of doing admin and processes around that, that is not something that comes naturally to me or something that I even enjoy. But trying to find purpose even in the way that we do all of those things. It's not just about, do we provide a great product and service, but and this is still something that I'm working on at the moment, but how we respond to emails, how we send out invoices, how we do the day-to-day mundane running of the business, is that actually lined up with our purpose and our vision moving forward? So it's very much a work in progress, but I would say that's probably because there was a big personal aspect to that as well. It's like, well, I'm exposed now, the whole business is me. If people don't want to take the business on board, and it's not a rejection of me, but it kind of is, because this is my baby. Like, this is kind of a big deal now. So I guess just trying to go, all right, how do I make sure that I have a good, confident foundation within myself, especially as psychologists, as coaches, we are the product. So we need to be making sure that we're refining ourselves as the product as well. Obviously, as well as just being a good human and developing our own character as well. So yeah, I think that for me was very much all right, who are you and what do you want to stand for now? And what does that actually practically look like? And then navigating that space when it's overwhelming, I think, has been probably the biggest test, and going, okay, does that still stand true? And then how do I maintain that?
I think that's so interesting, and I think it's very inspiring. And what just flashed across my mind was that you don't have to start your own business to have this. And I think that sometimes people can be in a job situation where they're not, I suppose, in a practical sense, moving up or changing job or whatever, but there's always that opportunity to go, what do I stand for? Who am I? Where am I going? What's my purpose? And taking on yourself as a project, I guess, in a way, where, so you could do that in a job. You could do that if you became a leader, where you kind of have to, because that might be a bit of a sink or swim situation. But so I like the idea of us deciding to reinvent ourselves even without life dictating that we have to reinvent ourselves. And so I think that what you were talking about, just really going deep on your values and who you are and where you want to go, I think is just so, I think decision making is easier. Mm-hmm. And I think that is just really inspiring for people to do that at any point in their life. Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, it wasn't necessarily, it was being forced into a point where I was starting my own business, just was kind of like the, I guess, kick in the butt to get it happening. It wasn't, like you said, you don't have to be in that situation. Even now, 3.5 years later, I still have those moments where I'm like, okay, what am I doing? And I actually had an interesting experience with a team that I was working with, and I would show up. I was requested to be at certain training sessions that they were running, but I would just sit there, because not by choice, because I tried to engage and tried to find different ways to be involved, but just every door was closed. And I remember sitting there going, what am I doing here? Like, there are all of these other clients who want to be working with me right now, and I'm just sitting here watching, you know, training after training after training, and I'm just like, what? I need a purpose every team that I'm involved in. So I would try and find different ways. Okay, is that about connecting with coaches? Because that's where I had access. I didn't really have much access with the athletes at that time. So I'm like, right, I'm not here for any reason. This is really frustrating, but I'm going to build relationships. And some of those relationships have still continued in surprising ways. And so I think every team that I go into, or every individual that I'm working with, that's the question is, what am I doing here? In a way, it's like, how can I best add value? But then that's also a really great grounding question as well, because it's like, well, am I adding value? What am I doing here? Am I adding purpose? And it's that continual reminder. Am I just here kind of showing up and enjoying the experience, or am I actually adding something? And same with individuals. And I'll have that conversation with individuals if I don't think we're moving forward. Kind of be like, what are you coming for? Like, I'm feeling like you're not getting anything out of this. Is there a purpose from coming? And sometimes, you know, people will be like, well, this is my purpose in coming, is just having a safe space. I'm like, okay, there's a purpose, but it's a really great accountability question as well. So you don't kind of end up just going through the motions. And I think sometimes it's so easy to do that in life, and then it's almost like you wake up years later and go, what have I been doing all my life? And I think as well, you know, over this period of lockdown, that was a bit of like that for me in my personal life, because business has been amazing, but with having a bit more time, I was able to sit back and go, hang on a second, what do I actually want in my personal life? And I realized that I had a lot of incredible friends, but a lot of them were away, like interstate or overseas and things like that. And I'm like, okay, I really need to work on developing my local network of friends, even things like that. And just going, well, this needs to be in all areas, not just what we're working towards in a work sense. Yeah.
It's like awareness. You know, look at things, how they look at what's going on, and that awareness. I love it. I think it's so interesting. So, Rachel, is there a message that you'd like to leave everyone with?
We've spoken a lot about purpose, and one of my favorite quotes at the moment is, vision gives pain a purpose. And I think that kind of sums up everything that we've spoken about. When you have that clear vision, it gives you that direction, and you can keep coming back to it, and you can keep coming back to it. But even when things are painful and when things are scary, it gives you hope for the future, and it helps you to push through and go, you know, this is a really hard time. This is a really hard experience, but I can see a way forward because I can see the vision at the end of it. I don't know what it's going to look like. Like, it doesn't have to be a clear, concrete picture, but just having a rough idea of where you're heading will help you to keep going when things are really tough.
So true. Well, that is so beautiful. Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today. You are an absolute inspiration to me. You just light up my life, and I just know that you light up the lives of all the people that you come into contact with. So they're so very lucky to be able to spend time with you, and I'm so very lucky to be able to spend time with you today. So thank you so much. And Rachel Jones, have an awesome day.
Thanks so much for having me, Dale. You too.